Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello and welcome to part 5 of the 30 Days of No Time to Die. It's Friday, the last episode of the week, and we're going to be talking about the post-title sequence stuff. That's obviously the MI6 lab sequence and a bit of Jamaica time as well. My name's Tom Sears, and I'm joined as per usual by my good buddy, Mr. Chris Wright. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, Tommy, not too bad. Looking forward to cracking on with our review.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So where do we find ourselves after the title sequence and the song has finished?
Okay, so it comes in, it fades up, and we've got 5 years later. So that's interesting, isn't it? Straight away, different time period, obviously. It's been 5 years since Bond said goodbye to Madeline on the train. So it opens up. It's quite... This whole scene here, so we're talking about the sort of MI6 laboratory. So it starts off with sort of half a dozen guys in black sort of dropping down the side of a building. Right, it reminds you a bit of sort of Batman Begins, not Batman Begins, Batman Returns, sorry, you know, with the break-in with the joke and all that. It's sort of stuff which you kind of seen before, but I do love that part where they put the little sort of laser cutters on either corner of the window, and they just go and then the whole pane falls in this massive thick bit of glass, and they go in, and they're there to steal a bioweapon called Heracles, which basically one of the guys who works in there, Valdo Obruchev, has been sort of developing. We don't know this at the moment, but later on we find out Emma's involved. But at this point, it starts off, so we see that there's a break-in, and then it cuts to this little scene where we've got Hugh Dennis. For anyone who's across the pond or elsewhere, not in the UK, Hugh Dennis is a well-known sort of comic over here, and I must admit, when I first saw him, it did throw me a little bit, because I saw him at the premiere and I was like, oh cool, he's a Bond fan, and not knowing that he's in the film, and then there he was on screen, and he did a good job, you know, it was good comic timing, but it did throw me a bit, because it's kind of, when it's a recognisable face but not in sort of something that you're used to seeing, it is a bit strange. What did you feel?
He's on TV every single week over here, isn't he? On like Mock the Week, that like panel comedy show. Yeah, it's funny. I must admit, it does take me out of the film a little bit, because it's like it's like just having a random celebrity that you know for doing something completely different just showing up in a Bond film. I don't think I know he does, but I've not really seen him act in anything. I know he does like sitcom stuff. And all that, but I've never seen any of it. So it feels a bit weird. Not that, like you say, not that he does a bad job. It's just, for me, it's just a bit like, that's a bit odd seeing him. I don't know. It would almost be like seeing Del Boy or Rodney show up in a Bond film. Do you know what I mean? You know, that's a reference for our British listeners that won't translate overseas. But but there we go.
I did like it when they were sort of joking about having the smallpox tub, and then it's obviously Valdo's soup, isn't it, or something, and that was a nice little moment. So here's something that I've heard a few people mention, possibly yourself as well. What are your opinions on Valdo Obruchev and his accent? You know, some people said it's very Borat-esque. Is it too much stereotype? Is it too much of a stereotypical accent? Does he get away with it? Is it fine? Is it okay? Do you think he's funny? What's your thoughts?
I'm not. Yeah, I think he's a bit. It is very Borat. I mean, especially that I like animals. I mean, why would you even say that at the end of a phone call? Do you know what I mean? It
did make me tickle though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a bit like he's. Like there's the bit in Cuba where she spots him scuttling along the balcony, clutching his suitcase, and it's a bit Scooby-Doo, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? He's a bit like, it's a bit cartoon, I don't know. I think I find him more annoying than I do entertaining. So yeah, I don't know, but I guess he's a key figure in the plot, but. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I like him.
Because there are certain people who are definitely against him, and then I think there are others that find he's fine. In terms of, he does make me laugh, so I do kind of fun it. But I think that accent is kind of quite a recognisable comic type accent, isn't it? In terms of stuff, and I didn't know if it was being a little bit too stereotypical. But I think because he's quite integral to the plot, this character, and we see him quite a lot as well, particularly in the first half, sort of thing. So it is interesting. So basically, he gets, while the break-in is happening, he gets a call on the phone from Safin. He's basically saying, right, this is it. Safin's obviously known this is going to happen for ages. He's sort of said, right, Spectre are here. They're going to break in. They're after Heracles. They need you to get the code, so they need you to basically open the laboratory so they can steal the weapon. And they think that they need him, so they're not going to kill him, basically. So while that's going on, and the Spectre operatives are pretty merciless, so they sort of they come in, and all these lab workers, innocent sort of people, and they end up shooting loads of them. Then they line up a few, and then basically say who's Obruchev, and he puts his hand up and he says it's a dual code is needed. Who else? And then they point to the Hugh Dennis character, and then they kind of go off to this other part of the laboratory, while behind them all the other workers are just killed. Obviously it's Spectre, so you expect it, but it's still pretty sort of cold-blooded. And then they get to the point where they've got, like, it's a bit like the GoldenEye system, you need the 2 keys, don't you, to get in, and with this one you need the 2 people sort of doing that.
This whole sequence reminded me of the Dr. Doak level on the GoldenEye Nintendo 64, actually. It's funny you mentioned GoldenEye, but anyway, go on, carry on. Yeah,
sorry. So then they sort of turn the system to unlock it, and they get it out. And then this bit I wasn't quite sure on. So Primo is there, and he has sort of a tube that he then puts the device into, the sort of Heracles capsule or whatever it is, file into, and then suddenly it almost looks like it freezes or something. Maybe it is freezing it to be used at a later date. I think that's what it probably is. But that was interesting. And then they shoot the Hugh Dennis character. They don't need him anymore. And then they sort of escape and take Obruchev with him. Now, this bit I did like. There are a few moments where I think it's quite Mission Impossible in this film. And this is one of them, but I still really like it. So this is the point where they get to that open lift shaft. There's that sort of massive bomb thing that they drop, which releases loads of these sort of magnets as it falls, and they're sort of strapping Obruchev up, and basically you see one guy jump, and then they basically push Obruchev into the lift, and you see him falling, and then just held at the minute. Oh, magnets, and then drops. But like, I like it. I think that's pretty cool. It's something that I'd actually want to try myself if I could.
Yeah, it does look right up your street, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
But what did you think? Did you think that's a bit too Mission Impossible, or was it okay?
I must admit, the moment I saw them cutting through the glass, I was like, this is a bit Mission Impossible, because they usually have some sort of gadget like that, don't they?
Yeah.
And then again with the magnets. I tell you what, I do have a pet hate, man, with things where they have to say it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let the action speak for itself is what I feel is better writing. And it happens again later. So for example, when he lands the bomb, he's like, magnets, and then boom, they let him off. It's kind of like, I don't like being told that. Do you know what I mean? I'd prefer it being displayed in some way. And later on, like, I don't know, I feel like there's something missing when you have to have somebody tell you what's happening. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
and it happens later in the Spectre meeting when he's like, it's working, only Spectre is dying. And it's like, okay, well, he stood there by his fucking self, and it just, you wouldn't say that. And it's like, it's just a sort of cheap way, so we all go, oh, right, that's what's happening.
But do you know what's really funny that you mentioned that? I think it might have been Jamie. It might have been Jamie, I can't remember. But someone was saying that actually the opposite, because they were saying at the very end on Safin's Island, where they're like, well, it's never quite explained what's going on, but they did a good job of that earlier in the film with the magnets and what was the other thing you mentioned?
The gas.
Yeah, the gas for the thing. And so they were actually happy that it was told. But then I guess the Safin thing, obviously we'll get to that later, but that's a lot more complex than the magnets. You'd kind of, I assume, guess that is what's happening. But so again, that's more, I guess, the character, but they're trying to get a bit of exposition across while they're doing it, I suppose. But I do like the actual idea of that. The sort of down with the magnets. That's very cool.
It's a minor thing. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not ruining the film for me, but it's just one of those things that I feel like the better writing for a movie is when you instinctively understand, or it's broadcast in another way rather than him literally going magnets and telling you what's happening on screen. Okay, right, cool.
But I guess we do learn a little bit about Heracles itself. So we learn that it sort of spreads like a virus, and it can be coded to specific DNA. So
you can see why
that's
they delayed it
interesting,
now, can't you? When you hear things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's only programmed. It's only dangerous if it's programmed to specific individuals or whatever. So we basically get that they escape with Obruchev. Now there's a scene which we'll get to later where he's useful and actually obviously helps Bond, but we'll get to that later. But we next see Bond. He's basically retired. So for last 5 years, he's retired to Jamaica. He's got a lovely villa. He's out sailing, which he would do. You know, Bond. He's a part of the Navy. You know, loves sailing, loves being on the water. Comes back, caught a couple of nice fish. I love the fact that he's got his free diving fin. So he's obviously been diving down deep to get those. Comes back, got this lovely place. He sees a little bit of ash on his walkway, and he's like, okay. He goes inside the villa, sees a almost full smoke and delectado, which I thought, again, a nice little nod there. So he knows something is up. Firstly, how do you feel about that? Is that how you see Bond, what he's doing when he's retired? Sailing, fishing, living in a Jamaican villa. Is that how you see Bond?
100%.
Yeah,
nailed.
Totally.
Like when you see him bringing those fish back, it reminds me of those pictures of like Fleming, where he's in the middle of writing fucking From Russia with Love or whatever. He goes out for a little noonday swim, snorkel, catches something, comes in, has one of his servants cook it up for him, then does another bit of writing in the afternoon. Like that to me is 100. Like what Fleming's life was like when he was writing those books is what, in my mind, Bond's retirement looks like. You know?
Which is exactly what they depicted, basically, isn't it? And I think Daniel looks really good in that scene as well, in terms of he's still keeping himself fit during retirement, still diving, still sailing, still doing all that sort of stuff. And he's got a cool sort of place as well.
He's got a cool little wooden toothbrush.
He has. Yeah. Oh, that shower, man. I love that shower.
Yeah.
I'd be well at this massive outdoor sort of shower with a wooden toothbrush. But that toothbrush comes into it later on, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yes, because how they code Bond's DNA is from that toothbrush. Obruchev later on uses part of Bond's the toothbrush so he doesn't get killed in Inspector Meeting when they change over the DNA.
Oh shit!
So that toothbrush actually,
I missed that.
It's all foreshadowing. It's all these little plot points. But no, that's a really cool bit. So we do that, and then basically he goes out in his Land Rover. Driving away, but he knows he's being tailed, and then he does that cool thing where he sort of drives quickly around the roundabout, whatever it is, and then blocks off. And obviously, it's Felix Leiter, his old pal, his old buddy.
I like it when he's surprised to see Felix. It always brings his smile. Like I always think of the Living Daylights one where he thinks something's up, and then all of a sudden it's Felix, and he's like, "Oh, okay, there we go." It's nice. I like an unexpected Felix visit. It feels good. And
I do think the Jeffrey Wright, Daniel Craig, their chemistry is very good. Like they are mates. They do come across as sort of being proper pals and stuff like that. So that's really good. And this time Felix has got a little buddy with him. Who's the blonde? I quite like that as a line as well. Who's the blonde? That's a Phoebe Waller-Bridge line probably. Who's a blonde? And obviously it's Logan Ash, this new guy who Felix, you can tell he's not really overly keen on, but he's been forced to sort of go with this guy. So they basically Felix sort of asked for Bond's help. There's something that he wants Bond to help him with and collect and stuff, and says, is there anywhere they can go quietly? And they go into a sort of a nightclub, a bar. Do you think that's kind of like quite echoing Dr. No a little bit when he goes into the bar with
very
Felix?
Much so. Yeah. Yeah, go to Pussfellas.
Nice. Yeah, that's right, in Pussfellas. Imagine, do you think it was called? It wasn't called Pussfellas, but that would have been quite a cool little nod if it was. Yeah. So they go inside, and they're basically the three of them are sat down having a drink. Now, what is your opinion on the Logan Ash character? Because he's all, Bond, you're the man. This is Spectre, and he's kind of like geeing him up and almost like a fanboy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which obviously we know flips later on, but what's your thoughts on Logan Ash?
Yeah, there's something. He's too clean cut, isn't he? He reminds me a little bit of what's his name? From License to Kill, the little money dude.
Truman Lodge.
Truman Lodge. That's who I was thinking of. that sort of, they're almost cut from a similar cloth, where they're very clean cut, clean shaven, very like excitable types. And yeah, I think he played that very well, of being he calls him the Book of Mormon, doesn't he?
Yes,
which is
that's
such a perfect way to describe that kind of person.
He smiles too much.
Smiles too much. When you have that, it's creepy, isn't it, when somebody's a bit too smiley in that way.
Never trust anyone that smiles too much.
Exactly. So I like that, and I do like the whole setting. And of course, he has a little run-in with 007.
This is it, with
doesn't he in the pub
in
there.
The bar, which is obviously we see later on.
And and I do like that. I think there's room to explore like a Bond who doesn't work for the service anymore, and it's like adventures happen to him as an older retired man that he gets caught up in. You know what I mean? I feel like you could explore that in maybe a book series or something of being drawn into little adventures here and there. So I do like that. I like the Felix. It's like being there in the bar and all that kind of stuff.
And did you like the sort of the game they were playing? With the coins, sort of guessing the coins in the hands and stuff like that. And
I guess so. Do we know what that is? What if that's a name, or have they just made it up?
I think there must be a name for it. I have heard of it before, or seen it before. So it's definitely a game, but I can't.
I do like games in the world of Bond, because Fleming was very much, he'd be playing bridge or he'd be playing something, wouldn't he? And it was like, I always imagined Fleming when he was in London, he'd be going to his gentleman's club, he'd be playing a game of something with some other dude, and they'd be talking about current affairs of the time or whatever. And that's a very Fleming-y thing. They'd probably be smoking cigars or whatever it is, or cigarettes, and drinking a whiskey or whatever it is at the time. That setting feels, games, Bond playing games like that, very much feels Fleming-y, and I like it.
Love this sort of little gambling, and I do like this sort of scene, because obviously Felix is kind of trying to entice Bond, trying to get him to help him, get him in the game. Meanwhile, Logan Nash is kind of saying, well, you're the only one, you're the man, you have to sort of join us. And I love the look that Bond gives Logan Nash whenever he talks. He's just like looking at him with sort of a cross between suspicion and disdain. And I think he plays that so well, Daniel, when he does that moment. It's really good. And I think it gets to the point where he's had enough of him, and he's like, right, that's it, I'm going to the bar, my round. And he goes up to the bar and he only buys one drink. And so his round is a scotch for himself. And I think at that point, Felix, he bumps into Nomi, doesn't it? Who he doesn't quite know yet the moment he bumps into her. So he knows, that's once or twice, I think, that thinks he might have seen her or something. And then I think at this point, Felix kind of knows that Bond isn't on board, and he needs to kind of get up there when the other guy isn't there. So they're at the bar, and that's when he says, oh yeah, who's a Book of Mormon and stuff like that. Political appointee. I love the fact that he says, oh, it appears that intelligence isn't central anymore. I think that's a fucking brilliant line. I love that. Very, very good line. And then again, he sort of says, you got to come along, Spectre, everything like that. And Bond basically refuses him. And walks out, and Felix says, at least take my number. And he's like, I've got your number, as he walks out. And that's quite cool. So it's not, Bond isn't interested at this point in time. There's an offer, and it's working with a buddy of his, but yet, he's 5 years he's been retired, 5 years he's been enjoying the Jamaican life, and it's going to take something pretty special to bring him back from that, I think. And then he goes outside, obviously goes to his Land Rover, and it's someone's sort of broke, someone's done something to it, and it's not working. And then he gets you want to ride or whatever with Nomi and the lady that he met at the bar, and that's quite a nice little moment. So they're getting on the moped, and she sort of gets him to hold her a little bit tighter, and they talk about what she does. Oh, I'm a diver. What do you look for? Oh, old wrecks. And you come to the right place.
That's what she says. I remember not quite hearing that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then I tried to listen again on Thursday, and I still couldn't make out what it was she said. Old wrecks. Okay, right.
And then Bond says, oh, you've come to the right place, or something like that. So I thought that was quite a nice line, obviously hinting at Bond's age as well. And then she drives him back to his villa. Now this is I really like this bit. So they get back. She's like, oh wow, lovely house, and thank you. Turn on the lights and everything and have a look around. But then straight away she's like, oh, is this the bedroom? Wanders off, and you think, right, here's your lover man, Tommy. Here's your lover man. Gets a drink, it certainly is, or something. Knocks that back, goes straight in, and then we get a little bit of Live and Let Die, which I thought was nice. Where
that's true.
Obviously, does a bit of Rosie Carver, removes a wig, and
great
then you
line
get that
from Bond.
Yeah, what does he say?
He's like, "That wasn't the first thing I thought you'd take off."
Yeah, and
like
that was great.
Yeah,
and that got the whole cinema going. That was a brilliant line. Very witty. There's a lot of good dialogue around this time in particular, and but then she obviously breaks character. He recognises she must be work for the service. She says she's a 00 and very arrogant as well. High achiever and all that sort of stuff. So, and Bond sort of says it's Commander Bond, not Mr. Bond, and that's pay some respect. I might not be in the service, but I've earned that a little bit. So that's quite cool. And she basically threatens him, but kind of does in terms of Obruchev is ours, we're after him, stay away sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what's your sort of, what do you think about this particular scene then?
Yeah. So is it now she reveals that she's 007?
Yes, just at the very end of this scene.
That's right.
So she talks about Project Heracles and about Obruchev, and basically tells Bond to stay away and shouldn't be with the CIA or whatever. And then as she's leaving, she says, "Oh, by the way, the number they assigned me was 007." And then Bond does, "Oh, it's just a number," sort of thing. And that's quite good. She's quite an antagonises Bond, doesn't she? She likes to sort of get his hackers up.
Yeah, it's nice. It's interesting to see, him being pulled between these two forces, the CIA trying to get him on board, and then his old employers telling him to stay away and all that kind of stuff. But he schools her a little bit as well, doesn't he? He says something like, "You not communicating with the CIA, it's not good," or something like that, doesn't he? And all the rest of it. And she's basically just telling him to stay away from the whole thing. Now, let me ask you this. How do you feel about her being 007?
I don't have a problem with it. Because if Bond was dead and out of the picture, they're not going to not use a number.
Yeah.
Because, okay, out of respect, someone said they might retire the number, but then surely every other 00 dies at one time or another. Yeah. So they can't just retire numbers. So I don't have an issue.
I think the fact that she's 007 is a really nice recipe for some friction. Because if she was just 006, she's not allowed to be 006 because it's Trevelyan and that's too similar. So let's say she's
005. There hasn't been a 5.
Okay, there we go. 5. So let's say she was 005. It's like, okay, there's a bit of professional, what's the word?
Rivalry.
Competition. Rivalry. There you go. Yeah. Bit of rivalry between the two of them. But the fact that she's got his old number does up the stakes a little bit. And I do. Yeah. So in my mind, once I heard that, because I didn't know that was going to be a thing, and I was watching her on Graham Norton, where she's like, "I'm not going to tell you what 00 am." I'm like, okay, she's definitely 007.
Yeah.
I thought that's a nice, real good setup for some tension and some banter and some back and forth and all that kind of stuff. What I will say is I hate the way she gives it up. I thought later that was way too weak. And I think what should have actually happened is she kept the number all the way through. She's 007 in this film. And then once he's dead, afterwards, when they do read out the quote, they reinstate the number to him and then they retire the number. So it becomes he's 007 forever. And she gives it up then because it has more meaning. There's no real need for her to give it up. She's giving it up just because it's like, okay, it's cool now. He's back to 007. And there's her motivation for giving that up. There isn't any. Why would she do it? And it especially at that time as well, like they're about to go in on this mission. That wouldn't give a fuck what number, who anybody is. It's just like, let's go and get the job done. I didn't like that at all. So I do like the fact that she's 007, good recipe for some tension. Don't like how she gives it up. I definitely think it should have been done like posthumously at the end. And then M would say, we're going to retire the number in honor of James. Because, and you say, 00s can die all the time. True. But 007's a special one, isn't he?
They're not all like him, are they?
They're not all as good as 007, So I feel like that's the thing.
Yeah.
I am curious about M's relationship with the other 00s and what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But for me, that would have been a more powerful thing and sort of, I don't know, maybe
I'd go with that.
Yeah, added some extra juice to the ending, maybe.
I'd go with that.
But interesting.
And I do like the way that he says it's just a number as well, because it's clearly not. Like, it is not just a number, and I think he again plays it really well, and I think that was a great idea, and I think it works great.
Nice.
But yeah, I think your sort of alternative for the end is probably a better way of doing it.
Thanks very much. Now, let me ask you this. So she bugs off, and then that's what makes him get in touch with Felix.
So he goes back. Yeah, we see it. That's right. So basically he's back with his villa, and he's just looking out in the ocean, and he kind of realizes, right, he could spend the next 5 years doing exactly what the last 5 years have been, or he could actually do something with a little bit more excitement. Maybe he's missed that. There's a little, he just seeing Felix has kind of reignited those sort of flames for doing that sort of business. And he kind of realizes that, okay, this is a nice life, but maybe I'm not quite old enough to be just doing this. Let me get back in the game. And and it's because, I think it's definitely because of Nomi's character that he decided he wanted to be in. Gives Felix a call. I'm in. And Felix's reaction is great. He's like, yeah, we've got him, sort of thing. How do you feel? Like, that's another thing that we've never seen before. Obviously, Bond working for the CIA, and not MI6. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What do you
but that's it. Like I said, I think there's room to explore what that would look like if Bond retired from the service, what his life would be. And I think like we said, they've nailed it. It would be a Fleming-esque. When Fleming was in Jamaica, it would be something like that he would do. He'd be out on his boat fishing. He would, be snorkeling, diving, and all that kind of stuff. And I imagine he'd be, playing cards with Strangways of an evening, all that kind of stuff. So, and I think there is, because somebody like Bond is a thrill seeker, isn't he? And it's like, I don't know if he could, in the same way that so was Fleming. You know what I mean? I feel like Fleming suffered with like depression when he wasn't fulfilled and excited about something, when he wasn't traveling. If he was in London during the winter, it would be like, fucking hell, dreary. I must admit, man, when I look at a British winter, especially the last one we have, I feel very much the same. So it's like, it's that dreary greyness that Britain has. And but at the same time, so I think Bond very much has that DNA. And I think as much as Jamaica's cool and he likes hanging out there, there's always going to be that spark of adventure that would want to bring him back into the field at some point in whatever shape or form that is. So that's a nice little thing. Yeah.
And what do you think of Nomi then, Lashana Lynch's character?
I think she's good. I think she's got a bit of sass. She's obviously like got a chip on her shoulder, and I suppose if you're a newly instated 00, you're newer on the scene, got a bit of a chip on her shoulder, you feel like you've got to prove yourself. And you see something like Bond, especially somebody who's your direct predecessor like that, you've got to show
a reputation.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to you're jockeying to sort of like put your flag in the sand and establish yourself. So I get all of that. I think she's good. I don't know whether she's like super memorable though. I think like for me, and obviously we'll get to that in due course, but like Paloma, when we meet her, she's so like.
When are we going to meet her? Sorry.
On Monday, I think. Aren't we? We're going to meet
her in
her
person. Oh,
no,
right,
sadly not, man. Right. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
But when we meet Paloma, like, because she's quite a unique character, isn't she? Like in the same way that she could easily be a gun-toting badass, like she is, and like Nomi is. But the fact that she's new and she's like all giggly and she's got that cute factor, that really stands out, doesn't it? There's that little personality quirk in there that's much more memorable. And I wish Nomi had maybe something else that was kind of, I don't know, just sort, because at the moment I feel like she's a bit of a generic operative. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing else about her aside from the fact that she's 007. There's no personality thing in her that sets her apart, that makes her super memorable. I don't know. What do you think?
I get kind of vibes of Halle Berry in terms of some of the dialogue. The down boy later on, I think I could picture Jinx sort of saying that.
We didn't get a your mama, did we? Thankfully,
thankfully we didn't get that, and one or two other things. And I think you're right. I think she's. Her character, obviously we're going to see a lot more of her character. I think she's pretty, like, I love that whole pretending to be local Jamaican and she's not, does the Rosie Carver thing, and the fact that she is a 00, I think that's great. But I think maybe there'd be she isn't quite, she's definitely not as memorable as Paloma. That's for sure. And maybe there was one other little thing that's needed, just one other part of her character potentially. But I think she does a decent job, obviously, with what she's given. And I do think, in terms of the only reason I'm saying this is because someone mentioned that basically all her job is to be a taxi driver to Bond, like taxiing him on the moped, taxiing him in the car, and then like journeying him with things. Which, I mean, potentially a little bit early on you could say that. Obviously, that definitely changes towards the end, but there is more to her than just that. But it's no, I think she does a decent job with what she's given, but potentially not as memorable as the woman who we'll be chatting about tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not
Monday,
tomorrow, sorry, Monday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool stuff. All right, that about wraps up today's festivities, didn't it?
Yep, this is it. So this day 5 rather, done and dusted. That's the first week of the 30 days of No Time to Die. So enjoy your weekends, everyone. We will be back on Monday and we'll be chatting about the Cuba scene. So from I personally, I'm sure you do, and everyone that I've kind of spoken to really, really enjoys the Cuba scene. Like, that is right up there. I think Paloma is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good stuff in that scene. So I'm buzzing to talk about that on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely, good stuff. Yeah, all right then. Well, I will see you on Monday, Chris, and we'll get our Cuba on. Absolutely,
perfect.
Cool stuff.
I'll see you there, Tom.
All right then, everybody. James Bond Radio will return on Monday. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Have fun, everyone.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.